Jay, welcome back to Breakdown. It's a new year, January 2nd, Monday, 2022. We're going to talk college bowl games. Ready to do this?
Always ready.
Let's do it.
Okay.
JJ, the bowl season is almost over. So far, this bowl season, uh, of all the bowl teams that been playing bowl games so far, what team has had the biggest victory? Or it's the biggest winner?
I think that would be my alma mater, the Central Michigan Chippewas.
Central Michigan is the biggest winner.
Yeah.
Elaborate, sir.
Well, they went from a bowl game that was only streamed on the internet and had a payout of $300,000 to a bowl game that was, instead of being streamed on the internet, was broadcast to CBS, which you don't
Okay.
even need a cable provider for. You just need an antenna. And the bowl payout was $3.5 million, regardless of win or lose, and an extra million, I believe, if you win, which I do believe the Central Michigan Chippewas did do.
So, Central Michigan was originally scheduled to play Boise State in the Arizona Bowl. Boise State backed out. Washington State was originally scheduled to play Miami in the Sun Bowl. Miami backed out.
Well, they backed out because of COVID. They didn't.
Correct.
That's why they backed out.
Boise State backed out because of
To
COVID.
be fair to both Miami
True.
and Boise.
And yeah. And so they found a replacement on what, like 2 or 3 days notice?
Yeah, actually, when Boise State backed out of the Arizona Bowl,
Yeah.
um, Central had their buses in Tucson, which was the same place that Washington State had theirs, even though I believe the bowl game was in El Paso.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
The Sun Bowl was in El Paso. Well, good for the Chippewas. Been the biggest winner so far. JJ, let's talk SEC Big Ten. Big Ten finished the bowl season 6-4. The SEC will finish the bowl season either 7-7 or 6-8, depending on what LSU does to tomorrow.
Yeah,
Because we know a week from now the SEC will win one and they will lose one.
they absolutely will.
But let's talk about some of the heads-up game between the SEC and the Big Ten.
Okay.
The SEC won 3 of the 4. The 3 winners were Georgia, Arkansas, WPS, Woo Pig Sooie, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
The loser was Tennessee. Tennessee lost to Purdue. Georgia defeated Michigan. Arkansas defeated Penn State, and Kentucky defeated Iowa. Anything about any of those games you want to point out?
No, what do you want to say about either of those games?
Well, I'll just say the Purdue Tennessee game was an amazing game. Nobody wanted to win that game. I don't remember how many touchdowns were scored in the last 5 minutes, but it was a lot of them. Did the Michigan Georgia? We will talk about it later on. Arkansas Penn State. Penn State, the entire defense opted out of that game almost.
Their running defense for sure did.
Yeah, the point spread on that game went from Arkansas being a dog until I looked at it right before the kickoff time, and Arkansas was a 2-point favorite.
Yeah.
So it had really changed because all those players had opted out.
Bowl season is now opt-out season.
Before we get into the playoff game, let's talk more about the bowl season. Ole Miss, their quarterback, Matt Corral, he ended up with a ankle injury in that game. Should he have been playing in that game?
If he wanted to, I mean, I think it should be up to him. I don't think he should be, anyone that sits out should be condemned for doing so, but everyone that does play should be celebrated and for their team.
What do you think about the comment made by Kurt Herbstreit about players opting out?
Yeah, he had the opinion that players don't enjoy football as much as they used to, and he was discussing with people opting out. But he is paid by ESPN, and ESPN had all but one of the New Year's Six bowl games. ESPN or ABC, their parent company. So I think him being employed by Disney might have had something to do with him having such strong opinions. I think he definitely is advantaged by players continuing to play, and that's what he bases his career on is analyzing players. So I just think that it was disingenuous for him to not acknowledge his biases when making those comments.
Do you think, find it strange that he didn't say anything about Brian Kelly opting out? Brian Kelly being the head coach, the former head coach of Notre Dame. He left Notre Dame. His team were in the top 10, and he opted to leave that team and not go to the bowl game with them. And the same thing for Riley Kelly.
Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley, gosh. Why is it the players are always the bad guys, but the coaches are the ones making all the money? And they're not the bad guys.
It's always been that way. It's been a double standard for a while, and it's always been that way. And until more people acknowledge the disparity, I think people are gonna make comments like that.
Okay. Well, JJ, let's talk about a crime scene. And you can tell me two crime scenes. You can tell me which one of these crime scenes you want to break down first. The one in Dallas, Texas on New Year's Eve, or the one in Miami on New Year's Eve?
I'll let you decide. What do you want to go with?
Well, let's go to Big D, where Alabama mugged Cincinnati. 27-6 was the final score. What was the storyline in this game, JJ? Or was there one?
I think Alabama outclassed another opponent. This time it was very much on the ground. They just ran all over Cincinnati. Alabama had been a passing team all year, and I was a little concerned when I'm sorry about that. I was a little concerned when John Mechie III went down that would play into Cincinnati's hands, as Cincinnati does have the best secondary in the country with Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner, but they didn't need to test Cincinnati's secondary, and they just ran all over them. And
it was very much, to me, business as usual for Alabama. A no-nonsense team. But JJ, one of my dear friends told me this probably back in September. He said that Nick Saban has destroyed college football. What say you?
I'd say that friend would need to provide examples for why he thinks that, I guess. I'm not a fan of Nick Saban's, but just because he's been dominant, I think the viewership, the revenue would disagree with your friend. I think your friend is upset.
Yeah, you know what? I agree that Nick Saban is nowhere near destroyed college football, but he has made a lot of non-Alabama fans unhappy numerous times with victories. And you know what? He's getting paid to win games, and more power to him.
Well, if it makes your friend feel any better, just think in 10 years from now, all Alabama fans will be upset because Nick Saban will be 80 and feasibly done coaching, and whoever replaces Nick Saban, no matter who it is not going to be as successful as Nick Saban. So
Possibly. You know what?
almost certainly.
Almost certainly, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. But it's not much to say about the Alabama-Cincinnati game that I can think of. Alabama, their defense was outstanding. As you said, their offense didn't need to throw the ball that much. There was no need, so they just ran the ball.
Yeah.
So how about the SEC Big Ten matchup? The game that I was really, really looking forward to seeing. Georgia and Michigan. Georgia won 34-11. Anything you want to say about that game? I got a couple of questions I'll ask you as we go through, but before I ask you the questions, is there anything you want to point out at all regarding that game?
The only thing that I'd have to say is I wonder where Cade McNamara is going to be at quarterback next year.
He only threw one interception, right?
Yeah.
So
and no touchdowns, and didn't do much more than manage the game, and he didn't seem to do that pretty well. So that would be my initial thought.
at halftime, JJ, score was 27-3. Was it over then? Did you know it was over? Did you think it was over at that time?
I thought it was over before halftime.
Really? Why?
Michigan did absolutely nothing to make me think that they could turn anything around. It wasn't like a bunch of fluke turnovers or anything like that. It was being dominated at the line of scrimmage on offense, being dominated at the line of scrimmage on defense.
Well, they won the second half, 8-7.
Congratulations on beating Georgia's second, third string as they prepared for their real bowl game against Alabama.
Okay, do you agree with Jim Harbaugh? After the game was over, he said, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said, in Michigan history, this is one of the best teams ever. Your
Yeah,
take?
sure. I mean, because it's nebulous and unspecific enough that it could be one of the 50 best teams ever. It could be one of the 40 best. Like, yeah, I believe it's one of the best teams ever. I don't know if he had said one of the 20 best teams ever. I would have disagreed. I mean, they've won what?
Really?
They've won 12 national championships, so it's definitely not one of the 12 best teams ever. And I think they've made it to the point where had they won a bowl game, I think they lost bowl games that would have made them national champions. So I don't think that this would compare to that either. So, but I mean, they finished in the Final Four. So yeah, I would say
what
it is.
team in recent history was better than this team? If you can point out some players, teams or whatever. Can you go back? Was it just the '87 team? Was that the last team that was better than this team?
Oh no, the 2006 Michigan team was better. The Chad Henne team with all of those receivers.
Okay. Well, JJ, Michigan just their offensive line just won the trophy as the best offensive line in the country. How impressive were you with their offensive line against Georgia?
Yeah, the Joe Moore Award should have went to Georgia. They completely mitigized Michigan's pass rush, and Stetson Bennett seemed to have all day to throw all the time that he wanted, and they moved the ball, running the ball at will. So I would say I think the best offensive line, and Michigan didn't even have the best offensive line in that game, let alone the country.
Okay. Georgia's strategy, I don't know if you noticed, but they threw a lot of quick passes to the edges.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them. They didn't like drop back into the pocket to pass on a lot of those. I mean, it wasn't like drop back into the pocket and survey the field.
Now last 7-step, 5-step drops, just 3-step, and
it was a lot of drop back, and we going to the right edge, or we going to the
that's
left edge.
It's the best way to mitigate Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. The best two ways is to run directly at them, which is what they did, and to get the ball in the hands quickly is what they did. But also, Georgia had the athletes to get to the edge. Michigan tried to get to the edge time and time again, and they were getting nothing with it.
Were you impressed with Stetson Bennett? He was 20 for 30 with over 300 yards passing. But a lot of those passes were quick ones to the edge. But he also had some nice completions down the field. Were you impressed at all with him?
No. I was impressed with Brock Bowers, though. I was more impressed with Stetson Bennett's ability to escape the rush. I mean, his legs was more impressive to me than his arms, but I was not super impressed with his legs either, to be honest. I think I was just completely underwhelmed with Michigan's ability to do anything with him. I think the real Stetson Bennett we will see against Alabama, but no, I can't say that he did anything but manage the game slightly better. But he just had much better pieces around him to do so.
Okay. JJ, Michigan, known for physicality, being a physical team. Jim Harbaugh had that T-shirt on that said, "Just run the darn ball." How physical was Michigan compared to Georgia?
They were outclassed completely physically. Like they were blown off the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line was dominated and their defensive line was dominated. I saw on Twitter, Aiden Hutchinson get like it looked like he was like a sled, and Georgia's offensive line was doing a sled drill. He was just getting blown back. Like there was a viral clip going around, just it looked like he had no strength whatsoever, no explosion. It was really quite embarrassing for Michigan.
Interesting, interesting.
Almost everyone except for JJ McCarthy should probably be embarrassed with themselves.
If these teams were to play two more times, would it be a much better game?
Yeah, for Georgia.
Explain. Why would it be a better game for Georgia? I would just the opposite.
Because Michigan failed to match up with them in any way. Michigan couldn't get the edge. Michigan couldn't run up the middle. Michigan couldn't complete passes downfield. What Michigan did absolutely nothing in that game. You explain to me why would you think it would be just the opposite?
Because I think Michigan has more potential than they delivered on the field.
Well, they should have delivered a modicum of that.
I think maybe they were surprised by Georgia's attack. Number one,
Had a month to prepare. I mean,
I understand, but sometimes you don't look at this aspect of a game or something. I just think that those quick passes surprised them big time. They were ready to pin their ears back, and go after Bennett.
Stetson Bennett had been doing quick passes all year though. Like if they had paid attention to the scouting report, to me it looked like they were physically overwhelmed. But Brock Bowers has led Georgia in receiving coming into the year, that true freshman, and he did it again. Like the quick passes down the seams, the quick passes to the edge is what Stetson Bennett has been doing all year.
Okay.
I think Michigan was physically overwhelmed, and I don't think that they schemed the game correctly, but I also don't think that they matched up anywhere close to how they should have against Georgia either.
Would you consider the season for Michigan to be successful?
Yeah.
Okay. Why was it a successful season, given just what happened in the most recent game they played?
Well, they're going to finish the season ranked third in the country. They beat Ohio State. They had a finalist for a Heisman. They won the Big Ten. I think it was a successful year because of the previous. I think it was the most successful year they've had since 2006 when they lost to Ohio State and then lost in the bowl game. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a successful season for Michigan. Outside of Ohio State, I think it's the most successful season that any team in the Big Ten has had outside of Ohio State since 2006.
Okay.
Because Michigan made it to the playoff. Michigan State made it to the playoff a few years ago. They didn't score a point. At least Michigan still did that first. Penn State has never even made it to the playoff. Wisconsin, nobody from the Big Ten West has won the Big Ten championship game. So,
how would Michigan's success compare with Cincinnati's success? Cincinnati lost one game this whole year, and presumably to maybe the best team in the country. But that's still debatable. Would their success be comparable to Michigan's success?
well, relative to the history of the program, I would think it's a significantly more successful season for Cincinnati. It's probably the most successful season in their history just to make it to the playoffs. They'll probably finish in the top 5. I don't know if Cincinnati's ever done that in football before. But the biggest reason why this season was a success was because they won so much that their coach couldn't interview for all of the open positions that came up. He couldn't interview for the Oklahoma job.
Okay.
Couldn't interview for the LSU job. He couldn't interview for the Notre Dame job.
Wow.
Because he had a modicum of loyalty, unlike Brian Kelly. And
Lincoln Riley.
well, Lincoln Riley didn't have a chance. Brian Kelly left while Notre Dame still had the opportunity to make it to the playoff. Lincoln Riley didn't have that. So I would say that is the biggest reason that Cincinnati had a more successful season than Michigan, is because their coach Luke Fickell, there's a lot of blue blood jobs open this offseason, and he was busy game planning for Alabama and did not take them. So he'll be back, and in 2023, Cincinnati will be joining the Big 12. So 2022 will be their last year as a group of 5 team. So I would say it's pretty darn successful in Cincinnati.
Well, Cincinnati, their next game is going to be really tough too. They have to play another SEC team. their next game. And that SEC team starts with an A. And it's not Auburn. And it's not Alabama. So their next game, September 3rd, I believe it is against Arkansas. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be in Fayetteville. JJ, in a moment, we're going to talk about the Georgia-Alabama game. But before we do that, I want to do some helter-skelter stuff and just go back and talk about some of the bowl games, specifically Ohio State in their game against Utah.
Yeah.
Was that an all-time classic?
No, but I mean, it was a really good game. It reminded me of the Penn State USC Rose Bowl game, 49-52, where Trace McSorley and Penn State just came up short against Sam Darnold and USC. Something about the Rose Bowl, something about the sun setting at that night where defenses just want to run and hide and they don't want to participate, and the offenses want to come out. But yeah, all of those records set by Ohio State, and the quarterback and receiver was pretty impressive.
And one of their better receivers opted out of the game, right?
Well, they're two of arguably their best receivers in the history of Ohio State's lauded program. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave both opted out. Chris Olave, I believe, I know he's from California. I believe he's from Southern California. So he was still practicing and was considering playing in the game up until like the night before. But yeah, they didn't need him. They had Smith-Njigba and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, it was an amazing game. Probably one of the most exciting games. Had that been a playoff game, it would have gone down in history.
Yeah.
Game like that. Trying to think of some other bowl games that were interesting. Iowa, Kentucky was a good game.
Yeah.
Both teams had a chance to win. Actually, the Iowa Kentucky was a good game, and the Tennessee Purdue was a good game. The only
Different styles.
the other two wins by the other two wins by the SEC with Georgia and Arkansas. Those were not as close, not as entertaining, but.
Yeah, the Arkansas game was close when Penn State still had their starting quarterback in Sean Clifford.
Well,
if Penn State wasn't leading, they were only down, I think, maybe like 4 when he got hurt.
It wasn't a single play that got him hurt. He had taken some hits.
That's the story of his entire season.
But it was 8 minutes to go in the game when he went out. It was 8 minutes.
Well, and what was the score?
Arkansas was ahead.
But how much were they ahead by? Well, you said it wasn't as close, and I would disagree. The Arkansas Penn State game was close, and Arkansas didn't even throw for 100 yards, but they didn't need to based on the ground game. But I think that might be a little bit of revisionist history, but I don't know. It was a close game. The Penn State Arkansas game was close. To me, it was.
It was close until Arkansas got the ball to start the third quarter, and they scored from there. From there on, in my mind, they dominated the game, the second half.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go back and watch it again just so I can prove myself correct, because I do have it recorded. Okay, JJ. January 10th. Are we looking at a repeat, or are we looking at revenge? Georgia, Alabama.
You're absolutely looking at a repeat. This is going to be... Georgia is Charlie Brown. Alabama is Lucy. And Alabama is going to do to Georgia what they did last time they played Georgia this season. 2 games ago.
Obviously, Georgia will make some adjustments as far as Stetson Bennett won't throw 2 interceptions like he did against Alabama the last time.
He might throw 3 for all we know. I wouldn't be so. I don't believe in Stetson Bennett enough to say he obviously won't throw 2 interceptions. Okay. But we can revisit this tape in the event that he does.
Point well taken. Why is it, JJ, that the bookies disagree with you? They got Georgia favored to win this game.
They do. I think they opened up at 2.5 and went to 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they had Georgia winning the first game too. Last 7, I believe.
They say it's really hard to beat a good team twice.
Mm-hmm.
You agree, you disagree?
I say it's harder for a decent team to beat Nick Saban. But, I mean, it's hard to beat a good team twice unless you have a better team. I think it's easier if you have a better team.
Okay, well, I would agree with you there. But JJ, let me ask you this question. This is an SEC matchup. Why would anyone, why would any sports fan other than SEC fans be interested in this game?
Because people like watching college football.
Okay, okay. Uh, are the two best teams playing?
No.
Interesting. Now the two best teams are not playing, but they've gone through the playoff. They've defeated who they put in front of them. Who was not put in front of them that they should have defeated?
I think Alabama and Ohio State are the two best teams in the country, and I'm gonna stick by that.
If I remember correctly, Ohio State lost to Michigan, and had Utah's quarterback not gotten injured, I wouldn't. I would say Utah might have beaten Ohio State.
And if that game meant something, I'm gonna assume more than 10. I assume 10 players wouldn't have opted out for Ohio State.
Okay. Okay.
So that's. I mean, but as far as like the transitive property of wins, if I'm not mistaken, Alabama lost to Texas A&M, and Texas A&M lost to Arkansas. So Arkansas must have beat Alabama.
Okay, you will agree though that the Ohio State Michigan game was in essence a playoff game. Would you not? Because if Ohio State knew that if they lost that game, and Michigan knew if they lost that game, they would not be going to the college playoff.
Yeah, once you get to about week, 9 or 10, every game that you're playing, and every contender's game, every game that you're playing in is like a college playoff game, unless you're undefeated like Georgia was.
So, given the fact that Michigan Ohio State game would be considered a playoff game, and Michigan, you told me, JJ, I asked you did the better team win when Michigan played Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
You told me the better team won.
Yep.
And now you're telling me that the two best teams in the country is not, Michigan is not one of them.
They are not.
Okay. Interesting. But this game coming up, I'm looking forward to it because I want to see what kind of adjustments Georgia will make. I don't think it's going to be a repeat of the first game. Although Alabama might win, I would not bet against Nick Saban and Alabama in this game. But I would think that a decent team. You told me that Georgia's offensive line should have won the offensive line.
The Joe Moore Award.
The Joe Moore Award. So if their offensive line is that good, maybe they decide to use their offensive line in a way that showcase their offensive line against Alabama that will be more productive. I just feel that there would be some adjustments made and that it should be a close game. Alabama, I'm not convinced that Alabama has the better players. But it's like, as you always told me, it's oftentimes about matchups. Why do you think Alabama's not getting the respect being a dog in this game? After beating them the first time and then after shutting out the only undefeated team around. Why is it that they're not getting the respect?
I honestly really don't know. Unless like this is some type of ploy from like professional gamblers to artificially inflate the line and then hammer it right up, the day of the game. Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, as good as John Mitchie is, like he isn't their best receiver, and he was proven to be replaceable. I don't know. Alabama has the Heisman Trophy winner. They have the better receiving core. They have the better offense. Their offensive line, I believe they didn't get sacked once against Georgia in the first go-round. They have the better coaches. I just don't understand. I don't honestly have no idea why Alabama isn't the favorite. It makes you wonder if Vegas knows something that the public doesn't. But, I mean, they have the better quarterback. They have the better receivers. I mean, I think it's an offensive game nowadays. I honestly am wondering that myself.
Well, JJ, you mentioned coaches. Kirby Smart is a protege of Nick Saban. How good of a coach is Kirby Smart?
He's a pretty darn good coach.
Okay. So is the coaching matchup significantly different, unbalanced?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
I'd say Nick Saban versus any coach in the country is going to be pretty unbalanced, but specifically against a coach that hasn't proven that, he's never won a championship, and he's a very, very defensive oriented coach. An offensive side of the ball is not his forte.
Well, Georgia does have some athletes, and I cannot go against Nick Saban. I really can't. I gonna have to agree with you, JJ. It's kind of weird when you and I agree on the winner of a team like this. But boy, I think I would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Anything else on this game that you want to bring to our attention or mention? Because I think you've broken it down pretty well.
I don't know. I mean, this is the third time in the past 10 years that we're having a SEC versus SEC championship game. So
That's true. I hadn't thought about
not particularly excited for that, but I do anticipate that the winner will be the same as it was the previous two times.
If Nick Saban wins, won't he break the record? Isn't he currently tied with someone for the most national championships?
I don't think he is tied with anyone. I think he has.
Oh,
I think he has 10.
So he has more than anyone else.
Or yeah, I mean, I don't know how many championships he has actually, but I thought he has more than.
I don't think it's 10 because he's
Yeah.
He
I
got
think maybe
one. He
7.
got one at LSU.
I think it's 7.
I think you may be right.
I think Paul Bryant had 6.
Okay, because he has one at LSU. This is
He. I know he has more. I know he has more championships than Bear Bryant, but I think he might have more Alabama championships than Bear Bryant already.
okay.
But I don't know.
Well, 15 years ago tomorrow, he was hired. He was introduced as Alabama's coach.
6 championships later.
So in 14 years, he got 6. Yeah, okay, that's not bad.
Look like he's gonna have 7.
That's still to be decided.
Yeah.
But that's how they play the game. And it's been a joy discussing this with you, JJ. I hope everyone enjoyed the discussion and leave some comments. And JJ, before we go, I just want to congratulate Houday Nation. They are the ACC North champions.
AFC North champions.
AFC.
But I'll take the ACC win too. We're all the champions of everything. Now that was the real one that you should have been on. They were, I believe, 1,500 to 1 to win win the AFC North in August. So if you had put $100 on that, we'd be sitting pretty right now.
Houday Nation is Cincinnati Bengals for all those who don't know. But that's all we got, JJ. You got more?
Hey, I have nothing.
Peace out.
Bengals to the Super Bowl.
WPS.